Hey guys, and welcome back to another math video. This is actually math video number 20, so our final lesson style video. So after these English and math videos, like the 20 English and 20 math, what we're going to do is we're going to transition to more of like, we're going to teach you guys about like skills that you need to know, like tips for the test taking, and then we're going to transition more to just problem solving. So we're going to do practice tests, we're going to just solve a bunch of problems for you. But this was like the teaching portion up to now. So hopefully you guys, you should be more or less ready to start reviewing. Okay, so today's topic is going to be data interpretation and graphs. And before we begin, like usual, I just have my key tips. So my first key tip is make sure to read the labels and understand the graph. I mean, I think that graph questions are not really that hard. What they're testing is not the graphs themselves, it's the understanding of the graphs and whether you can apply it in other math subjects. So, you know, you just need to make sure that you actually understand what the graph is telling you, and so you don't lose easy points that way. My second tip is try to eliminate wrong answer choices by looking at the graph. What I mean here is if the graph has like an average of roughly 80, let's say, like you eyeball it, then you can't have an answer that is 800, right? Because that just doesn't make sense. So you need to kind of just logic out maybe, oh, this answer is way too big, this is way too small, this doesn't make sense, right? Things like that. And then my third key tip for you guys is just to remember that these can have multiple steps. Like these practice problems, these problems in general can have multiple steps. They can give you a graph, but then they can make you do a conversion or multiply or do all these different things. So it's not as simple as just reading the graph and picking an answer choice sometimes, and you need to be ready for that. Okay, so now we're just gonna do a few practice problems to review. So here we have our first problem. The graph above shows the number of schools per city for 5 small cities. Cities M and N each have 500 students per school. City P has 400 students per school. Cities Q and R each have 700 students per school. Which of the 5 cities has the greatest number of students? Okay, so cities M and N have 500, city P has 400, and cities Q and R have 700. So first, let's just go one by one. M has 8 students. So let's just, you know what, so let's be ordered with this. Let's do M, N, P, Q, and R. M has 8 students, right? We can write students, 8 students. N has 5 students. P has 9 students. Q has 6 students, and R has 4 students, right? So now we have the number of students, and now, the number of schools, not students, sorry. And then we know that the students, so this will be schools. Here, let me rewrite this not to be confused. Schools, and then students, right? These will be our students. So in M, cities M and M each have 500 students per school. So 8, and then, you know what, let's just write 500, 500. P has 400, Q and R each have 700. Okay, so 8 times 500, well, 8 times 5 is 40, plus 2 zeros, right? So it's going to be 4,000. Obviously, N is going to be less, so we don't even have to calculate it because it's the same but less schools, right? So we can immediately just cross out N. Same with that, we can also cross out R for the same reason because of Q. And then 9 times 400 is, so 9 times 4 is 36, plus 2 zeros, so 3,600. So we already know that it can't be P. And now Q, 6 times 700 is 4,200, which means that Q has the most students, slightly more than M, and that is why city Q is the right answer. Okay, next question. So here we have a pie chart of the food consumption of the average American per year. And they're telling us the total consumption is 1,840 pounds per person. Based on the circle graph, how many pounds of milk and eggs does the average American consume each year? Well, this is milk and eggs, right? And it's X percent. Well, we know that percents have to add up to 100, right, in these contexts. So here we have 38, right? So let's just add up all these percents. 38 plus 10 for cereal, plus 10 for meat and fish, plus 8 for sugar, plus 4. So we have 58 plus 12 here, right? And so that's going to be 70. So if we have 70, that means that milk and eggs have to be 30%, right? Now they're telling us, they're not asking for the percent, they're asking for the pounds of milk and eggs. But we know that 30%, and we know the total amount they consume per year is 1,840. So we can do 30% of 1,840, right? And that's the same as multiplying, right? 1,840 times 0.3, right? So if we do that, let's just do that really quickly. So what we're going to do is, instead of multiplying by 0.3, you can also just multiply by 3/10. So 1,840 times 3 is going to be 0, 2, 1, 5, 2, 5, right? So 5,520 divided by 10. Cross out these two zeros, and we get 552, which is H. Another thing, you could have probably just realized, 30% of 1,840, that has to be roughly 550, right? Just thinking about it logically. So you didn't even really need to calculate that, but just, to prove that you can. Okay, now we have our next question. Essay length. Here we have a chart with number of words, less than 100, between 100 to 250, 251 to 500, and more than 500. Okay, all 150 students in grade 8 at a school are assigned to write an essay on the same topic. A student records the number of words in a random sample of essays, as shown in the table above. Based on the sample, how many students in the entire grade would be expected to write essays with at least 100 words? Okay, so the key thing here is, based on the sample, how many students in the entire grade. They're asking us to use the sample here to basically decide what will happen with all 150 students. So first of all, they want us to see how many with at least 100 words. So let's count how many in the sample have at least 100 words. Well, the only ones with less than 100 words are these here. So it's just going to be 4 plus 11 plus 9, which is 24, right? So 24 samples have more than 100 words. Now, how many samples are there? Well, there's 30, right? It's the 24 plus the 6 we excluded. So this is the amount in the sample, which we can simplify down to 12 over 15, which we can simplify to 4/5, right? So we know that 4/5, or 80% of the sample wrote an essay longer than 100 words. Now we need to use this to decide how many out of the 150 students, assuming that the rate is consistent, how many of the 150 students wrote an essay longer than 100 words? Well, now what we're going to do is we're going to do 150 times 80%, which is also equal to 150 times 8/10, or 4/5, right? It's the same thing. Here. Okay, so 150 times 4, that's 600, divided by 5, right? So that's going to be 60 divided by 5 is 12, so it's going to be 120, which is D, right? And again, you didn't really need to calculate this. You could have just realized, 80% of 150 can't be 100, it can't be 30, and it definitely can't be 20, right? So just if you were to kind of look at that, it would make it much easier to just skip all that calculating. Okay, and now we have our last question, cell phone sales by color. And then we have different colors and percent of cell phones sold. The table above shows cell phone sales by color. What percent of the cell phones sold were blue? Okay, well, one thing, again, similar to the other question we did with the percents, these need to add up to 100. So, and I mean, I guess they also tell you that here, total is 100. So we can do 8K plus 30 plus 30 minus 2K plus K plus 5 must equal 100, right? All the percentages together must equal 100. So first we can combine like terms. 8K minus 2K plus K, well, that's just going to be 7K, right? So we can cross these out. And now we have 30 plus 5. Well, that's plus 65 equals 100. Now we can subtract that 65 from both sides. So we get 7k equals 35, and then k equals 5, right? So now we know what k is. Now they're asking what percentage of cell phones sold were blue. So the blue ones are 30 minus 2k. So plugging in k equals 5 to 30 minus 2k, we get 30 minus 2 times 5, right? Which is 30 minus 10, or 20. So we know that 20% of the phones sold were blue. And that's the answer. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching. And again, thank you guys for following the entire series. We were very happy to help you learn, and we hope you really did enjoy and understand more from this. Going forwards, like I said, we're going to be doing a lot more problem solving. But of course, if you guys have any questions, comments, anything, please email us or leave them in the comments. We will try to respond. And of course, if we see that people do want us to review certain topics, we will keep that in mind and we will make videos for that. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.